اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الرحمن الرحيم اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ما شاء الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافي مزيدا، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. يا لطيف لم يزل أطوف بنا فيما نزل، إنك لطيف لم تزل أطوف بنا والمسلمين. يا الله ربنا لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت عليم الحكيم. رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما، ربنا زدنا علما يا أرحم الراحمين يا أرحم الراحمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. واغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا يا الله يا لطيف يا خبير يا عليم يا أرحم الراحمين. وبعد، Inshallah ta'ala, we're on our fourth day, Inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah. Yesterday, Inshallah ta'ala, we went over the idea of the greatness of patience, as-sabr fil Islam. That was the first primary characteristic in which we're discussing within these lessons, Inshallah ta'ala, for us to inculcate, to embody, and to blossom into a new version of ourselves. Not to transform into something different, not to embody and become something different, but to take all of these qualities and bring out the inherent beauty that already exists within ourselves that just hasn't grown yet. Hence blossom, Inshallah ta'ala. And so lesson 4, Inshallah, still discusses patience. But in regards to putting patience into practice, so in the last class, in the last session, we talked a lot about the theory of patience, the 3 types of patience: patience upon obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, patience against sin and transgression that one commits, and also patience at misfortunate events. Right? And we talked about the significance of patience, the reward of the patience, the reward for the people of patience is paradise, etc., such as that. But it's one thing to discuss things in theory. It's one thing to compartmentalize things intellectually, but then it's a whole another thing to actually go about the work. To actually go about the work of putting patience into practice is a whole nother matter entirely. It's a whole nother matter entirely. And really, we can theorize about characteristics and concepts all day long, but until we actually step up to the plate and take our first swing, we're not actually being in the practice of being amongst the people of patience. And so, Inshallah ta'ala, that's what we're going to explore today. And the author begins with mentioning this fact. Bismillah. In the last chapter, we discussed the greatness of patience and its importance in a Muslim's life. We pointed to the fact that patience has benefits in this life and the next. Thus, it is obligatory for Muslims to base their affairs upon patience, keeping a watchful eye over themselves from the time they wake up until they sleep. They must be aware of the fact that as long as they remain in this life, they are in dire need of it. Now, it calls to our attention, these words, it calls to our attention that this matter, if it could be 25 hours, 8 days a week, that it would be. This is a matter that encompasses the entirety of our days. Every single moment, every single second, every single hour, every single day, every single year, from the day in which we become responsible, the day in which we hit puberty and we become Islamically responsible over our actions, until the day that we take our very last breath. We are responsible. And it is something that we need to be cautious of and be aware of throughout the entirety of our days. You'll notice a theme that the author really puts a very strong, encouraging words. And suffice to say that as it relates to our matter of the hereafter, prayer is something that happens at specific points throughout the day, obligatory-wise. Fasting, in its obligation, comes once a year in this month of Ramadan. The Hajj comes once in a lifetime for an individual who has the ability to do so. But these characteristics are obligatory upon a person all the time. In any moment that we don't exhort ourselves and we don't practice upon patience, and we fall into error. And so why that these things are just so important for us to really be careful of, to really put into perspective on how important these things are, so we don't compile sin and transgression that goes against us on our scales on Yom Al-Qiyamah without us even realizing it. No one can reach paradise except by showing patience in the face of unpleasant things and by bearing great difficulties. As the Prophet of Allah ﷺ said, paradise is surrounded with unpleasant things. And actually the first half of the hadith mentions that hellfire is surrounded by pleasant things. Or I'm sorry, the second half of the hadith, al-jannatu yani hawlahu bil makari, or mahafat al-jannatu bil makari, ومحافة جهنم with those things that are pleasant. So anyways, I'm sorry, I forget the Arabic word at the end, but in any regard, that Jannah is surrounded by the unpleasant things and that the fire of Jahannam is surrounded by the pleasant things. And so it goes to show when it comes to patience that it's naturally, you can't be patient unless you're within the face of adversity, unless you're within the face of difficulty. When we're confronted with ease, life is easy, our life is seamless, and we're not really kind of challenged. Maybe we're at work and we're not really challenged with our work, that's kind of easy. There's something to be patient about because it's just automatic. We're just able to perform, we're able to go about our duties, we're able to go about our tasks. But it's when we're faced with the unpleasant matters, when we're faced with matters that shake us a little bit, that challenge us a little bit, that is something that that's where the test comes in. And this life is nothing other than a test and trial, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions repeatedly throughout Quran. And it gets further exemplified in the fact that Jannah is surrounded by the unpleasant things, and the fire of Jahannam is surrounded by the pleasant things, following the hadith that the author mentions. And he also mentions another hadith in which it has been related in a hadith that when Allah created paradise and all the adornment and pleasures that it contains, He sent the angel Jibreel to gaze upon it. After seeing it, he returned to his Lord and Allah asked him, "How did you find paradise?" He said, "My Lord, I have seen in it what is beyond description. Anyone that hears about it will be eager to enter it." So, Jannah by itself, we hear about it, we want Jannah, right? Obviously, who wouldn't want eternal bliss, eternal happiness, anything such as that? But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah then surrounded it with the unpleasant things and said to Jibreel, "Return and gaze upon it." So then what does Jibreel say? He says, when he returned, having seen the unpleasant things surrounding it, he said, "My Lord, I fear that none will enter it." Meaning that even though we have the knowledge of what is contained behind the gates of Jannah, that everything that's surrounding it are things that are just so difficult, so challenging to overcome, that who's really going to be able to overcome these challenges and these temptations and these desires and these pursuits of the lower self and everything such as that in order to even obtain Jannah in the first place? And these are the things that Jibreel alayhi salam is saying. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Jibreel's attention to the fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, then Allah created the hellfire and sent Jibreel to gaze upon it. When he returned, he said, "Nobody who hears about it will enter it." What he meant was that such a person would be cautious to avoid all things that lead to entering it, and would thus not enter it as long as they were in the possession of their intellect. Obviously, we hear about the torment of the fire of hell. We hear about everything that's related in regards to it. No sound person or mind would ever agree to going to such a place. That is understood, that is known. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surrounded it with desirable things and sent to Jibreel, "Return and gaze upon it." When he returned, he says, "My Lord, I fear that none will be safe from it." Wadih, it's clear. the road, hard is the road that is less traveled. That this matter of aspiration, true spiritual aspiration, true aspiration to the qurb of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, true pursuit of God and being amongst the people of God and being amongst the people within the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that is going to require difficulty. It doesn't come for free. It's not cheap. It's almost to say that we almost deserve just to be within the fire, and we really have to earn our way towards greater heights. And that's what this world is about. When we put everything into perspective, when we put everything into perspective in terms of the reality of how we're supposed to experience life. Life is not supposed to be easy. If we try to make life just easy and with ease in our affairs, and we try to buy things that create less strain within our lives and make our menial tasks throughout the day easier, the entirety of our lives, look at any other look at any commercial, look at any billboard, look at any ad. It's all about advertising ways in which life can be made easy. But it's always in life. That's the natural condition of the human being. How can I skate by? How can I just have ease? You know, it's enough that we have a television. Here you go, a remote. You don't even have to get up in order to press the power button. And it's even so much so that some people don't even know how to turn on their TV unless they have the remote. I actually know people that they can't find the remote. They just won't get up to turn on the TV. They will spend a long time looking for the remote just to turn on the TV or something like that. But we need to be careful. We need to be careful. What does it say that we're always constantly looking for ease in life? Yet all examples around us show that the precious things of life are difficult to get. Diamonds lie within mines, and you have to dig your way through mines and impossibly difficult and hard to get conditions in order to uncover the diamonds. Because pressure makes diamonds, they need to be in a space of immense pressure. Why is it that pearls lie within clams at the bottom of the ocean? Why is it that the most beautiful things in life are always the hardest to get? Verily, within the creation of the heavens and the earth are signs for those of intellect. In order to get something beautiful, in order to get something wonderful, in order to experience something pleasant, in order to taste the sweet milk of a coconut, you have to break open its hard shell. In order to taste the sweetness of a pineapple and experience its wondrous taste, the tangy sweetness that's mixed in there, you have to go through its little thorns, I don't know what you call them, thorns in its hard exterior. Look at any fruit that we have. It always has hard exteriors, difficulties that are surrounding it to protect that which is beautiful. And it's only for those that are willing to aspire to pick it and to work through the difficulty that can taste the sweetness. And even those fruit like bananas or what have you that have soft exteriors, they're in the highest of places. They're not the low-hanging fruit, they're the high-hanging fruit. And so you have to climb, you have to work, you have to struggle in order to obtain that kind of fruit. Within the creation of the heavens and the earth is a sign for those who reflect. Is a sign for those of intellect. And it goes to show that if we really want heaven, it ain't coming easy, as it should be. As it should be. It's for those who earn it. It's for those who put themselves in position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows His mercy towards and enters them into Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst the people of Jannah, Ameen. We thus see that paradise is surrounded with unpleasant things, and the hellfire is surrounded by desirable things. Therefore, you must analyze your state from dawn till dusk. Muhasabah, taking oneself into account from the time they wake up until the time that they go to sleep. Every single day, every single year. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, he said in a statement, Hasibu qabla tuhasibu, that take account, Hasibu anfusakum qabla tuhasibukum. Take account of yourselves before you all are taken into account. Meaning that we need to take ourselves to task and understand what our positions are in relation to our ability to exercise patience, act upon good deeds, be in the state and obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to take ourselves into account before we remain heedless, lest we remain heedless and don't repent for something that we should have made repentance for. Don't seek forgiveness for something we should have sought forgiveness for. And then we're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and we're being questioned on it without the forgiveness to wipe it away, without tawbah to clean it from our slate. Right? Take yourselves to account before you are taken to account. And so, how do we do this? We have to constantly question ourselves and quiz ourselves and challenge ourselves. How well established is patience in you? Do you wake up for prayer at a time when sleep is pleasurable? When the caller to prayer proclaims, Allah is most great, Allah is most great, the lower self finds sweetness in sleep and prefers to remain in bed, especially when the weather is cold. The caller is saying, Allah is most great, and reminding you of the two testimonies of faith. Then he calls you, come to prayer, come to success. And he says, prayer is better than sleep, prayer is better than sleep. Are you able to patiently forsake sleep at that time and to swiftly obey the order of Allah? We're constantly being challenged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the entirety of our day. And the greatest signs of this are in the adhan itself, especially at the time of Fajr, this time right here. We just looking to satisfy immediately ourselves in sleep, catch a few minutes of extra Z's. Or do we truly understand the gravity of what it means to come to success? That within the prayer, within it, is success from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is success? His pleasure. It's the pleasure of God that lies within His success. If not, then be sure to train yourself to have patience at this time of the day, every day, waking up at the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated for you to wake up. However, if your faith-inspired aspiration is high, then you would desire to be amongst those who wake up before dawn to seek Allah's forgiveness in the last portion of the night. فَهَذَا هُوَ صَبْرَ عَلَى الطَّاعَةِ. That this is patience upon obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Constantly checking in with yourself. Trying to remain consistent. Trying to increase. Trying to at least do something that's consistent on a daily basis within the context of that which is obligated upon us every single day, such as the prayer. Remain on top of ourselves. And even still then, keep pushing ourselves. And so this is what this, practically speaking, right? We have trouble reading Quran every day, outside of Ramadan maybe? Just look at the Mus'haf every day. Okay, do that for a week or two. And just read one ayah. Another couple weeks, challenge yourself. Increase even more. Or perhaps maybe fasting. You fast in the month of Ramadan. Okay, this year, I'm going to go with the 6 days of Shawwal as well. A couple of years go by. All right, no, I think I'm ready. Let me try to do the 3 days of the month, at least in the sacred months. Increasing, challenging ourselves. We're not going to challenge ourselves if we don't take ourselves to task, if we don't take ourselves to account, if we don't have self-awareness. Self-awareness. Trying to feel what position we're in. Ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best the condition of our hearts, the condition and the states that we fall ourselves in position to His pleasure. However, we can have some idea if we're falling within the Islamic injunctions or not, if we're working to increase or not, if we're making supplication to increase or not. Right? we can take those as signs to at least motivate us and push us and let us know, okay, this is where I'm a little bit weakened. This is where I need to get better. And this is all having patience upon obedience. That first theory, that first type of patience. Try to stay on top of ourselves. Pushing just a envelope, just a little bit more. In brief increments, right? In brief increments. Then you proceed to keep a watchful eye over your movements throughout the day. In relation to your conduct with the members of your household, are you patiently reminding them about what is incumbent upon them, specifically the establishment of the prayer? Are you patiently observing their behavior? Or is the topic of your conversation with them limited to food, drink, clothing, and the maintenance of household or general news, which is probably of no concern to you anyway? What are we doing? Being mindful of even the permissible things, right? Being even mindful of those things. And that's what, when we talked about sabr ala ta'at, when we talked about patience upon obedience, that we do it in such, we get so conscious of it, and we get so conscious about patience against transgression and sin, that we start to actually have consciousness over those matters which are neither harmful or beneficial. And we start to want to stay away from those, so that we can engage in more beneficial behavior. And so even when it comes to our conduct in the house, what are we really talking about? How are we really benefiting our family members or our friends or our co-workers, our colleagues, when we're in the office? If we get back to the offices, inshallah ta'ala, soon enough, and we're headed to the coffee room, the break room, and we see, a colleague or what have you, what type of speech are we engaging in? Even if it's about a worldly matter, what's our intentions for engaging within that conversation? And do we want to discuss the current political affairs in order to shed light of Muslim-specific perspective in such a way that maybe invites that person to Islam in some form or fashion? Right? Or perhaps when we're headed out on our lunch break and we just want to take a breath and take a walk in the park to kind of clear the air, to clear ourselves. Are we doing it just to kind of remove that emotional distress? Or are we doing it because we want to put ourselves in a position where we could remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a little bit better and a little bit more clearly, in addition to gaining that emotional distress being uplifted from us? A lot of our intentions can go into these things. And so we got to constantly look at even those matters which are just permissible or don't benefit and don't harm. How are we utilizing them in beneficial ways and having patience to really take ourselves into account even to those things, even into those things, right? La ilaha illallah. Meanwhile, you never speak to them about their religious duties, although it is your responsibility about which you will be questioned. Why have you not exerted patience in that regard, whilst your Lord has said, O you who believe, protect yourselves and your families from the fire? And so it's not just protection within the face of sin, but it's taking that advanced precaution. Or at least in the example that the author is setting up here, that is taking advanced precaution. Maybe you're not necessarily engaged in sin at the moment, but take advanced precaution and add on to the scales instead of just doing things that will neither benefit nor harm. Right? Be at the forefront of the issue. Don't even put yourselves into a position where you could possibly fall into error. No, just be at the forefront, anticipate it, and do something beneficial instead. If your tongue has become accustomed to backbiting Muslims every day, so now we enter into patience against transgression and sin. If your tongue has been accustomed, and really the author really highlights the sins of the tongue, which is really, it requires a whole separate discussion in regards to the matters of the tongue and how serious and grave it is, right? And it's the most easy thing to be heedless of. One of the most easiest things that we could be heedless of that throws us into hell. And as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, that how many people are dragged by their faces in Jahannam except by the harvest of their tongues. We don't even realize what leaves from our lips. We don't even realize it. Yet, how many people are just heedless? And because of the things that they say without any regard, they earn the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protection and to make our tongues pure for His sake and His sake alone. But the author goes to that extreme example of going into one of the worst things, one of the easiest things that we could fall into, one of the easiest areas to fall into, just to show the kind of attention we need to pay to the kind of attention that we need to pay about ourselves. That even the smallest matter of just what leaves from what our tongue utters in any moment, in any instance, we need to have that level of accountability over it. We need to have that level of concern over everything that we do and everything that we say, because it all matters. It all matters. If your tongue has become accustomed to backbiting Muslims every day and night, then why not be patient and restrain your tongue from doing so? Such an act brings shame on your religion and lowers your rank with your Lord. Allah the Real addresses you in the Quran, do not backbite one another. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? Surely you would abhor it. Right? In the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, there's a mention of another hadith. It mentions backbiting is to mention your brother in a way in which he doesn't like. And that is the prophetic definition. To backbite somebody in just a way that they don't like. Whether they're present or not, you say something about somebody in which they wouldn't like that thing if you said it. You call them a name. Even if you're amongst a group of friends and people laugh, but you know they don't really actually like that name that you call them. Backbiting. Astaghfirullah. In response to what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, one of the companions said, is that so if I say about my brother is true? So even if I say, hey, where's, the short guy, the short one? Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha. There was an instance in which she was referring to one of her co-wives to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ while they were having a discussion. And to refer to the co-wife, she just indicated, she didn't say it, she just indicated, the co-wife was the one that was shorter. Right? The gesture that she made caused a rebuke from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he rebuked her immediately and mentioned that what she did was what she said, which when he said, meaning what she did was an enormity. And so even if something is true and something that we don't mean any ill intention, it could still fall within the area of backbiting that brings about the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to be careful about what we say and how we refer to people. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ replied, if what you say about him is true, then you have indulged in backbiting. And if it is not, then you have slandered him. Slander is, of course, far worse than backbiting. So we seek refuge in Allah, blessed and exalted be He. Therefore, be patient in guarding your tongue until you do not utter any word that can be construed as backbiting. Right. Attention and focus. Bismillah. Attention and focus over everything that we do. And having a sense of awareness. Using our consciousness to be aware of ourselves. It requires a lot. But for the reward of the pleasure of Allah, a lot will be asked for. With great power comes great responsibility. With great aspiration comes great fortitude. La ilaha illallah. Likewise, it is possible that you have shown laxity in your dealings with regard to lying. Are you not able to control your own tongue? So these are the questions we need to ask ourselves. You should be you can apply any kind of sin to this. Are you not able to control your lower desires? Are you not able to control your gaze? Are you not able to control your speech? Or am I not able to control my desire for, unlawful food, for food that's not permissible to me because you know what? That spicy chicken sandwich at Popeyes was really, really good, or whatever, right? So are you not able to control your own tongue? You should be certain that when someone utters a single lie, the two angelic scribes run a mile due to the stench that emanates from their mouth. Your Lord has said in that regard, 2 scribes sitting on his right and on his left are recording everything. Each word he utters is written down by a vigilant art guardian. And so every single word that we utter is written down. Every single action that we do is written down. And so if the angels or Raqib or Atid, if their whole job is to write down every single thing that we do, we need to even be before them. And before they could even write down the evil action, we've already made tawbah for that evil action maybe that we did. Because we're that aware of ourselves. Because we're that aware of what's going on. Which means what? Really, when we say, okay, aware, self-awareness. Practically speaking. We dial in and tune in. It doesn't mean we're in a constant state of deep, reflective thought. No. But it means that we pause. We take a moment to think before we speak. We take a moment to wait before we act. We just take our time. And as the Prophet Muhammad said, that haste is from the shaitan. And so we don't act hasty. We be patient. Wait. And then go. Then speak. Then act. Then do. Then decide. Allah musta'an. Heed the words of your Prophet ﷺ when he asked whether a believer lies. He said, no, truly the believer does not lie. He then recited the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who forges lies are those who do not believe in the signs of Allah. Right? And take that as a lesson for us when it comes to some of the sins of the tongue. But in any regard, the author then finishes with a dua. O Allah, enable us to attain true patience in acts of obedience, patience in the face of disobedience, and patience in the face of trials and tribulations, until you record for us an immense reward and great goodness. Make our feet firm on the straight path. Through your mercy, O most merciful and most generous, may Allah bestow his blessings upon our Master Muhammad and upon all his family and companions. And all praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. And really we take that as a challenge of ourselves. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're able to uphold that challenge of being able to be accountable ourselves throughout the entirety of our days. That we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we fulfill those words of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, in which he mentioned to take yourselves to account before you are taken to account. And that we have that kind of self-awareness. We have that kind of patience and waiting for the moment and not being hasty. Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. Allow us to heed the words of your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allow us to be able to pay attention to what he's saying and to really actually use it to move us towards you, Ya Rab. Allow us to do so, Ya Allah, Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Rahman Rahimin. For there is no other destination that any human being is headed towards other than you, Ya Rab. And so help to move us in that direction through the words of your Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the reminders of your Salihin, of the righteous people. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين آمين. جزاكم الله خيرا. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll pick up with the next lesson tomorrow, which will exhort us more towards how do we now, okay, we got the practice, some practical tips on how we can exercise patience and how it can fit into our lives, and how do we emulate the people of patience, right? Because we're not in this alone. We're doing this with others. Inshallah ta'ala. Allah barak fikum. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Anything that is correct is from Allah, and any errors or mistakes and shortcomings are from myself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.